time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is coal the right way forward? Now, protesters have taken to the streets to demonstrate against the government's decision to approve plans for a new coal mine in Cumbria. Now, it's worth £165 million, and this will actually be the first in the country for more than 3 decades. Community Secretary Michael Gove gave the project the go-ahead as he claims that it would have a neutral effect on climate change on the whole. And he also said that new green technologies won't be able to replace fossil fuels in production of steel for many years to come and would otherwise need to be imported. Proponents of the move argue that the mine would provide local employment, aid with the wider community and economy, all whilst aiming to be net zero in its operations. But critics have hit out at the government, stating that it would threaten the country's climate change targets, dubbing it a retrograde decision. It's been estimated that over the next 50 years, the mine would release 420 million tonnes of CO2. Now, that roughly equates to what the UK as a whole emits each year. So what do you think for the Great British Debate this hour? I'm asking, is coal the right way forward? I'm joined now by Director of Car 26, Lois Perry. Lois, thank you so much for joining me. I thought you were going to be in the studio. Oh, she's out there. Lois, so what do you think?
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, I couldn't get in, but here I am. Apologies. Next time, 100%.
At least you saved those carbon emissions. Now, I'm going to ask you then. So, do you support the opening of the first coal mine for 30 years?
Yes, finally, a clever, expedient, and fantastic decision from the government. We need steel. Steel is what makes, we can't build things without steel. We can't have any infrastructure. We can't make things. We can't make nuclear reactors. We can't do anything without steel. And coking coal is a key process in terms of making steel. In fact, it's actually an ingredient in the steel process. So how fantastic that we're actually doing this and we're not importing. It's even if you believe that CO2 is an issue, which I don't and my organisation doesn't, it's reducing emissions extraordinarily because we're not importing coal. It's fantastic.
Now, do you think it's a bit ironic how everyone criticised Thatcher for closing down coal and steel mines, and now it's actually the left who are opposing the opening of a coal mine, which is actually set to create hundreds of jobs?
It's unbelievable. The same people with the same, you imagine ideologies as the extreme left who were opposing the mines being closed down in the 80s, and now saying that we shouldn't have them open. It's absolutely extraordinary. Where you've got the Labour Party opposing jobs being created for working class people. I mean, you really couldn't make it up. It's absolute insanity. And as I say, even if you believe that CO2 is a problem, this is actually reducing emissions because we're not importing, which would cause more CO2 emissions. It's absolutely fantastic. But what I think is, why should we only have one industry being supported? Why aren't we fracking and creating cheap and abundant energy for everybody, hospitality, all of the industries, I think this is wonderful, a fantastic forward step.
Well, that is the question. Stay right there, Lois. I'm also joined by Just Stop Oil spokesperson James Skeet. James, thank you very much for joining me. James, I want to ask you, what do you make of the independent reports finding the neutral impact that this could have? So this could be a neutral impact in terms of net zero targets. Surely this is a good thing if we are opening a coal mine in this way.
Nana, that's a complete lie. That report is actually talking about the extraction emissions. It's not actually talking about the emissions that would come about from burning the coal. This decision shows that this government is entirely stuck in the past. They have no vision of the future. They have no answer to the cost of living climate crises affecting this country. This decision is a betrayal of every child in this country, and it shows to everyone that we're led by a criminally inept government who must be immediately removed from power before they do any more damage.
Yeah, but can I just ask then, how do you propose we make steel then if we don't use coal? I mean, and otherwise also we'll be importing, so therefore there will be carbon emissions in order to get this stuff to us, and it'll only be offset somewhere else.
So to your first point, Nana, actually the world is moving towards hydrogen production for steel production. In fact, the former director for British Steel is advocating for us moving towards hydrogen, and also with regards to your point about import emissions. actually 83% of the coal extracted from this will be exported. It's no good for our steel production. It's going to be sold on the international markets, and therefore it's just only going to be for the purpose of enriching millionaires and billionaires that this government work for. They don't care about British people. They don't care about our energy independence or security. It's a lie.
Well, I think the operative word there is, you said, moving towards hydrogen production. We're not there, though, are we? So this would be an interim procedure. Let me bring Lois Perry back in on from Car 26, because I want to pose the same question. Lois, could you respond to James for me, please?
Yeah, I mean, what he's talking about with hydrogen is absolute nonsense. I was talking to the acclaimed physicist and engineer that's been on your programme many times, Brian Catt, about an hour ago about this. And he said that actually the coking of the coal and the coal itself is actually an ingredient in the steel. It's not just being used to create the energy to make the steel. It's a component of the steel itself. So saying that it can be used, hydrogen and other things can be used is actually completely wrong. But it's so funny him talking about millionaires and billionaires when it's mega rich billionaires that are funding Just Stop Oil, who have massive oil interests in the US. And the reason why they want to just stop oil, the new contracts, is to keep the price of their oil higher. What an absolute... whatever.
James, I needed to respond to that because, you know, we do know that Just Stop Oil does have some very big backers who are extremely wealthy.
Yeah, I believe Eileen Getty. So Lois is referring to Eileen Getty. Yeah, she did actually inherit a lot of her money from her father.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, like, we'll take money from anyone if they want to sort of undo the damages of this.
People to stop oil. That's fantastic. Could you just say that again? That's brilliant.
With regards to what you said before, actually, there's actually a diminishing need for coking, as that you're speaking about. So actually what will happen is that coal is probably just going to be ended up burning for energy production elsewhere in the world. It's not going to benefit us for energy security. Now, Lois, you and I would probably agree on a great deal of things, that we need energy independence, we need energy security. The best way of doing that is to invest in green jobs, green renewables. In fact, if we invested in Cumbria, we could have 4,500 green jobs as opposed to the 500 that this project.
We are investing in Cumbria and we're creating 500 jobs. Complete nonsense what you're talking about.
Let him finish. Lois, let him finish. Let him finish. Sorry. You've got about 10 seconds.
The transition to renewables would give us the energy security that we need. Offshore wind is 9 times cheaper, all right, than fossil fuels at this time. Okay, like imagine cutting your energy costs by 9 times. The reason that the rich want us to do this is because it would result in a decentralized energy grid. Okay.
Okay. So hold on.
The energy bill.
Okay. Okay. So you think that? Okay. Well, let's let Lois. I'm going to give you the last word to respond on that.
Okay, anything can be 9 times cheaper if it's subsidised by the government to the tune of 9 times cheaper. It really isn't cheaper. It needs constant gas to back it up.
Let Lois finish. James, I gave you your chance.
I'm absolutely delighted that Just Stop Oil has admitted that it's funded by oil companies. Thank you.
Well, listen, I think that's it. Thank you very much. James Skeet.
And she's spent you can Google her, she spent the last decades investing in environmental organisations. It's not a secret, that's fine.
Well, no, it certainly isn't, James. Listen, we're running out of time, but thank you so much for that. James Skeet, thank you so much for talking to me. And Lois Perry, really good to talk to you as our director of Car 26. Really good to talk to them. Right, this is...